Last year, I took a look at the Vive Focus Vision and the Vive Focus Vision face tracker. And I lamented that, unfortunately, it was locked to that headset. And I would love for an open source project that could be used on almost any headset to come out. And then a couple months later, Project Babble was announced, with some pre-production units actually making their way into the YouTube ecosystem. And let's just say, from the moment I saw it, I decided to get one. And I did place my order in October for what would be the first batch out the gate that warrants those to be handed out to influencers. It is now June of 2026, and it's finally here. And let's just say they had a lot of problems getting these things out the door. They had supply chain issues, there were constant delays, and all communication was happening over their Discord server, which unfortunately meant that unless you were on their Discord server, you were out of the loop. But if this thing holds up the way that it was shown originally, this is going to become my go-to recommendation for anybody who wants face tracking and wants a product that should be available. According to them, Wave 2 should be starting soon, and they're hoping to get them out the door faster this time. So let's get into this box, kind of show what came with it, because believe it or not, each of these kits is custom. And I'm kind of excited because this will mean that my Bigscreen Beyond will have full face tracking and will be able to rival my Vive Focus Vision on the amount of tracking can do, all be at a laser base station version. So that too can be its own video. So let's get right into it. Hello and welcome. My name is Wolfie. You're watching GreaterThanPie, the YouTube channel where I talk about tech that specifically empowers you to game. And so today we're looking at Project Babble. Now, why would you want to face track in VR? Over the years, the most popular VR title of all time is VRChat, and other VR social platforms exist, and they are also getting more and more popular. Because of that, people have actually been pushing the boundary on what can be done to better portray your actual existence in the virtual space, and we have been pushing further and further over the years for more and more connectivity. It started with full body tracking using Vive trackers to have your legs show up in VR spaces. And then eventually we got to eye tracking, which is becoming so common that even Valve has it on their new headset. HTC shipped with one, and you can buy the big screen with one. The only issue is mouth tracking. Now, we use something called Vizemes to work around this. It takes the syllables A, E, I, O, U, you know, that enunciation, and then you make various shapes that then blend together. And that works pretty well for the most part. But there are things about how people talk and smile, little micro motions that don't necessarily convey very well when you're just basing everything on sound. And that is where full face tracking comes in. It has a camera, it looks at your face, and it sort of just tracks it the best it can. And I've been pretty impressed with it in the past. HTC did have one that worked on other headsets, and unfortunately it's been completely discontinued. So this came about and it had a lot of promise. First off, it's open source. You actually can make your own version of this and use your own software. But the form factor that they created for this project is really cool, and I really do think that it's going to be my preferred way to actually access the Babble software. So let's open this little box here. So little magnetic flap, and it opens right up. That QR code on the bottom right there is specifically for the instructions. They actually have updated instructions that they had to stick a sticker onto, which is kind of silly. That comes with stickers. We got this little furry guy who is green, maybe bluish. You know, I'll throw them on the sticker box. And then we have the interesting stuff itself. So my kit came with a bracket specifically for the Bigscreen Beyond. This is supposed to mount the tracker in the exact spot necessary for the big screen to work properly. We have the camera unit itself, which has this, okay, this is kind of cool. So we actually have a clear board. There we go. We got a clear board with the camera, and you can like see everything on the inside. And then this very nice blue that I didn't know if I could pick the color. I might have been able to. There's a little antenna right here. I'm gonna have to look up how that's supposed to be positioned. And then there's the USB. Looks like a power reset indicator that you can stick something into, but other than that, Yeah, there's no on-off switch or anything. So I'm assuming this is gonna have to connect into the headset somewhere. Oh, nope, there's an on-off switch right there. That is not easy to reach. Okay, we'll check out the instructions to see how this is gonna work. I've purposely kept myself to a minimum on what this thing does and how it works. We also have a matching blue, little like a GoPro style mount. This is of course to mount to the headset itself and adjust it. Looks pretty nice. A matching blue cable with a right angle adapter, a USB to USB-C connector, interesting, along with Allen keys and what looks to be hardware store hardware. Oh, this is gonna get interesting. I can already tell. So let's pop open. Oh, the cable's branded. That's kind of interesting. So the cable itself is actually branded and it looks to be like a little 3-incher. Might be just to get from the tracker to the headset maybe. We'll look at the instructions and find out. Let's, but then why do you need the antenna? Okay. Let's, I guess, grab a smartphone and give that a scan and see what happens. After reading the instructions, we're gonna need to move to the PC for this because a lot of the instructions are going to revolve around actually plugging this thing in directly into the PC, updating firmware, etc. What I am noticing though, is you can run this both wired and wirelessly. Now, I'm not sure how this is going to work with the Bigscreen Beyond, or better yet, what's the best configuration for the Bigscreen Beyond. It might be to run this thing wirelessly, but it looks like wirelessly it runs via Wi-Fi, which could introduce a bit of latency. I say could because in my current setup, it might not. I'm directly hardlined, at least with my computer, to the router. So it's probably gonna be fine, but I will look to do a little bit of additional research to see what people who've actually used this on a Bigscreen Beyond recommended doing. But for the general assembly, I should not have put it that way, it actually recommends doing it after the firmware is installed and set up properly. So I will get some B-roll of me putting it together and kind of, I guess, maybe talking over it. But first things first, computer. Okay, so setting this device up is actually pretty simple. We're gonna need to download a couple things off of the Steam store. So we're gonna need the Baballonia app right here. And this is specifically the software needed for running the tracker itself. And then to get it working in VRChat, we are gonna need VRC face tracking. I've already got this downloaded here. This works with all sorts of face tracking and eye tracking. So if you actually are having difficulty with your Bigscreen Beyond or your Vive Focus Vision, and in the future, your Steam Frame, this will help you, at least with the translation between VRChat and your tracking. Once you've got everything installed, you can go ahead and launch Project Babble or Baballonia, and that's going to open up this actually fairly useful menu. So when you first open this up, this is what it's going to look like. All of these are going to be blank, and you're going to need to set up your device and update your firmware. To do so, you have to come over here, refresh your devices. It's going to say one device found as soon as it's done refreshing, and it's going to give you a device name. Then you select the tracker and you can start configuring things. So mine's currently set to be in wired mode, and you do want to set this to whatever mode you're planning on using. If you do use wireless, you can use the Wi-Fi configurator to actually put in your Wi-Fi and router information. I personally think with a device like this, having it hardwired in is probably the most useful, but you can change it to be fully wireless if you wanted to. There is a stipulation that it is 2.5 gigahertz only directly. That slower speed makes a little bit of sense because it doesn't really need that much data, but I personally prefer to have things wired in, and I'll even show you guys how I have that all together. Then you have flashing the firmware. Now, personally, the most up-to-date firmware is probably the best for most people. There is a fix if you're dealing with a weird tracking loss issue. That being said, the tracking loss issue can be both on headset or tracker side. So unless you're experiencing it, it's hard to explain. Essentially, like it creates a gray screen. That being said, I've experienced this with my headset without this. And I actually have something from Bigscreen coming that should fix that problem. And I'll, of course, test it, talk about that later. Now, here's what we need to do to actually make this work with VRC face tracking. We need to set the data for this to both. So essentially, we're going to be pumping both our eye tracking and our face tracking through this software, even though the eye tracking is going to be provided by the Bigscreen Beyond. So by setting it to both, by default, it's set to face. It's looking for the eye tracking data too, which we can simply assign by selecting Big Eye. That is the one for the big screen. You don't really have to start the camera. It's going to do that all automatically. And for your face tracker, this will show up after you configured everything. You may have to refresh this device list for this to show up, but this is your face tracker. And you can start the camera to actually debug it. And as you can see, there's my finger. It works really, really well, and it sees pretty nicely in dark environments. So now that this is all set up on this side, we need to now access VRC face tracking. So VRC face tracking, if you've never used it, is pretty simple. It's essentially creating a port for VRChat to look at the data from your face tracker and then translate it directly to your avatar. It is extremely useful as a translation layer. And essentially right now it's in the waiting state because I don't have VRChat launched. To get the correct modules, I actually have both the Beyond and the Project Babble modules loaded. So I probably don't need to pump it through here. But if you don't have the modules, it's actually really easy to get set up. You go to this module registry and then you just look for it. So Beyond tracking module, that's for your big screen eye tracking. And then there's another one that says like Babble right there. You just install them directly from this page, no extra steps needed. And then you just toggle them and that's it. It's all set up. Now, if you are having difficulty with your avatar working with this, you can toggle them on and off just to give it a little bit of a restart. But since I installed the Baballonia app, I have not actually had any issues. You might need to reload your face tracked avatar if you're having difficulty though. That being said, you do need a face tracked avatar. I have been able to find some actually in VRChat myself. In fact, I have a video about buying an avatar in VRChat with face tracking, and it's worth a watch if you're looking into actually getting into having face tracking. Getting this set up is going to be pretty easy. We just need to get this little guy put into this thing like so, and then we put this into that, and then that into the headset. So time to do some scrolling. Okay guys, I have good news. It worked pretty well with our initial test. So I ended up actually buying a cable to purpose run this. So let's kind of explain how this works and the challenges that's gonna come up if you were to buy one of these yourself. So this little device doesn't have a battery on it. It needs power at all times. And so you have two ways of powering it. One, external battery bank or a powered strap of some kind that could run the USB-C connection. Two, actually there's three ways. Two would be off the headset itself, but if I were to do that, I would not be able to run the audio strap, and this does not have enough power going to it that I'd be able to run the audio strap and the face tracker, which is a bit of a bummer, unfortunately. And then the final solution is to connect it to a PC directly. Now, fortunately, this little thing doesn't need that much power or consistent power. But I did find this U-green cable that was designed for using a Quest, actually, that was actually the perfect length and had options such as a power injection box right here. I could actually run a USB-C directly into this to power the cable if I needed additional power. Fortunately, it doesn't need it, so it has a USB-A on the end, and I can just run these two cables, which are close enough in thickness, through the headset itself, and it works perfectly. In fact, I'm going to show you the results now. Okay, guys, we are here in VR. Tracking's all set up. We got the eye tracking with the big screen, face tracking, and I have to say, it's pretty impressive. It works so well. Like, it's getting facial movements that are much more minor than the other one could get. And with the full body tracking, the eye tracking, and this, it all is coming together to make this very, very lifelike representation of me in VR. I have full tracking, hand tracking, face tracking, eye tracking, full body tracking. Everything's here. And it's working out so well. Oh, I love it. Now, there are still some weird bugs that seem to be related to where I stand more than anything else. So yeah, I'm gonna have to figure that part out. But other than that, this thing is freaking awesome. It was totally worth the wait. I mean, you could see how well it was working in practice. It's insane. And while yes, you got to jump through the same hurdles of having a face tracked avatar, those are becoming easier and easier to get. Like, 1 second. This is an avatar I bought when looking into VRChat avatars. And again, look at this perfect face tracking. Like, it's insane. It's all like just there. It's all working. And it just, so cool. And then on top of it, there are some that are even built into VRChat now, like this one. This one I actually bought directly in VRChat itself. So like, we got face tracking here too, and eye tracking. So like I said in my original video, it's gonna come down to support, and that support is starting to show up. We have the avatars now. They're easier to get than ever, and to buy bases that already have face tracking and can be edited, like the one that I was just using earlier. These are both, by the way, by the same creator. And so I am actually very excited for the future of what face tracking in VR can actually bring. Because right now, we've got the detailed like face movements that we were expecting. And the tracking quality is so good that like, it's getting to the point that it's actually really, really exciting. Honestly, from a hardware perspective, this thing is really cool. And I like that it's open source and that you can build your own if you want to. Essentially, this can be used on any headset. And you can get the mounts directly from them. And I do believe their end goal is eventually to have these on sale, readily available, and not in batch orders. And when they do eventually get there, this thing is totally worth the $100 I spent on it. Like, I may have had to wait and pay an import fee, but it was worth it. I actually think that it was worth it. I love this. It is just, it works so well. And I can't wait to make future videos with it. But that is where I'm ending this video. That's right, we're gonna end it here in VR because why not? You know, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed watching it, consider leaving a comment, down below. Subscribe for more. And of course, I would love to hear your discussion on what you think about VR face tracking. Are we finally getting to a point where we can seriously consider it a future option? Do you think that the Babble is kind of cool? How well it works is, worth it to you? Even if it means possibly waiting several months? Or do you think that this is just going to be something that dies off in the future? I'm hoping not. I'm really hoping that this is just a thing that sticks around and continues to get cooler and cooler. Because a year later, it's already easier to get avatars. I already have 3 custom avatars for it, and I will continue to build and get more. But I'll see you in the next video. Wolfie, out.